Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. You are on the sidelines with the Sideline Guys for another NFL edition of the show. The draft grades are not done, so it's only right. I got my guy Cole back here to help us out. How's it going, Cole?
Just here a little under the weather, but we're gonna make through it.
Yes, sir. This is his flu game official. Jamal Murray tried to do it, right? He got them to the game 7, but this guy right here, he's gonna bring us to the finals. How about that? Excited to have my guy back, and of course, we will reveal what division we're gonna be covering very shortly. But it should be pretty easy to guess if we're being honest. Before we get into that, though, why don't you follow what we got going on? You can catch me at Negron MMA on Twitter as well as TikTok, Chris Negron _ on Instagram, so you never miss all the crazy stuff we got going on. Cole, where can the people find you?
You find me on Instagram and Twitter at the_real_J Cole.
Yes, sir. You can also follow the brand at OTS Media Co. on all social media platforms, OTS Media on YouTube, so you never miss all the dope stuff we got coming out. Just now, we did a little NFL show where we talked about a whole bunch of different things, especially with the tush push talks and that almost
I got a
getting
new name
rescinded.
for you.
Yes, sir. Go
It's
ahead. Yeah,
called the
we
it's
were
called
talking
the
about this
it's,
too.
it's the brotherly shove, right?
Oh yeah, so we were talking about this as well, and we ended up not going brotherly shove because of all the brother love identity with the diddler. I don't know if you're aware of this,
Oh,
right? So
did not
brotherly
know.
shove
I did not
can
know the diddler
also,
claimed
yeah,
that.
yeah. For a while, I don't know if you before all this stuff came out, he like changed his name to Brother Love, right? So brotherly shove, we getting too comfortable right here. So that we're still searching. Don't worry, we will find an appropriate name for the tush push so that it doesn't feel as grimy, right, when we discuss it. But shout out to all the teams like my Ravens that accepted, embraced the grind. You could check out our show on that. And of course, all the other dope shows we got on the channel. We got some MMA shows coming up for you as always. And then we just dropped the Dynasty fantasy show, which was really fun to talk with my guy Derek about some trades we did in our Dynasty League. So check that out if you're interested in some fantasy football content. And of course, follow the brand. But most importantly, this week's episode is brought to you by Eat Shroom Bar. You can go to eatshroombar.com and use code OTS to get 30% off of your first purchase at Shroom Bar. You get an awesome 12-gram protein bar made of the most health conscious mushrooms. We got reishi, we got turkey tail, cordyceps mushrooms, all the protein needs to give you the boost right after your workouts or even before, right? If you're feeling sluggish, it gives you the push you need to push through your day. So make sure you follow and support the people that support us. Eatshroombar.com. Make your orders, man. Get them in. But with all the pleasantries out of the way, Cole, it is time to go out east to the AFC East. Some would even call it the AFC least. But the first team that we get the pleasure to talk about is probably also one of the most dominant teams in this division. We've got the Buffalo Bills, and we get to discuss their draft picks. Now, it's only right that we start with our mock draft. Now, you and I both really were high on Maxwell Hairston, so it's cool to see him get this spot. I didn't think, if I'm being honest, that he would have went in the first round, but thankfully, I got my guy Cole on the show to make me look good, right? To not make me miss anything, because of course, my guy Cole ended up getting the exact pick that Maxwell Hairston got drafted. Now, in our mock, he had Maxwell Hairston going to the Giants. So, Cole, why don't you give us a little rundown about how you went Nostradamus and got the pick number right?
Well, I mean, the main thing is we had him as our number 4 corner, and some people had him rated higher on their boards. Obviously, the Bills did, compared to guys who went after, like Will Johnson and his injuries. And I just think that I guess the Bills were set in on it. You know, I was in that weird limbo. I should have had the Giants coming back in to get the guy that they ended up getting anyways, and then I probably would have made the Browns come in and get this. But it just seemed like the right spot, you know. It was like late round, first round. It's going to be like the corner that nobody expects, or like a receiver nobody expects. And the Bills wasn't going to go after that. They were going to get something to add to their defense. They needed a corner, either an outside guy, or Taron Johnson's kind of got that spot locked out for the slot. So that's why I think that they were trying to get a guy that can play slot, but really he's going to be an outside guy. And I mean, I like this guy. Went to Kentucky, was teammates with one of the guys that we coached. That's a running back right now, currently there. And fastest 40 time, regardless of position, right? 4.28. So he's got breakaway speed. So even if he does get a little tricked up with a double move or anything like that, his catch-up speed is ridiculous, right? And the Bills are heavy man coverage team, so you couldn't ask for anything better, honestly.
Now, the only reason why I can look at this pick and be a little sad, right? We both like the player. I just think the fact that Will Johnson fell the way he did and being able to get that prospect here would have been interesting. I feel like Maxwell Hairston on this Bills defense, to me, seems like he's going to be the number 2 corner, or fighting to be that number 2 corner. I think that's a good spot to be in that defense, and I think he can play that role well. The only thing I'm really concerned about is his staying power as a rookie. I think he's a little small at 5'11" and 190-ish. So obviously you need to get him in the weight room, get him on that NFL regiment to get him through the season, really. Like, that's what I'm most concerned about with him, of course, with the injuries also to be considered. But I think ultimately I like this pick because it seemed like they got their guy, right? Like, they knew what they wanted and they went out there and got it. I think this is a good fit for them too, because as we're going to see in the next couple picks, they just focused on the defensive line and also in free agency. So why not shore up this cornerback 2 spot? Excuse me. So I like this pick. And then also teammates, right? You're talking about teammates. He's excited to rejoin his former Kentucky teammate, Ray Davis, who's probably is going to have a bigger role in the offense this season. And also his new teammate, which we're going to get to discuss later as well. So we'll get to that when we get to that. Do you have anything else on their first pick before we move on, Cole?
I would say, I mean, I don't think the size is really much of an issue, just because for him to be that fast and to still be, I mean, he probably needs to be above 190, I would say. But I think height-wise, for his speed, he'll be okay.
I like that. I just think with the way he's shown to be such a willing tackler, I'm worried about catching the injury bug, right? These are all things that got to concern you, no matter what side of the ball you're playing on. But we move on to their second pick number 41. Came really close after the Maxwell Hairston pick. They get T.J. Sanders after, if I'm not mistaken, yes, moving up from 56 to 41 to do so. I love this, and we could talk honestly more in depth about the rest of their picks too, because the room that they're getting, right, is awesome, which makes this pick even better, if you ask me, because you're not forcing these guys, all 3 of them, if we're being honest, you're not forcing them to be your high-end producer right now. We don't need you to be our 4-down guy, right? Let's figure this out. Let's work you in ways that work to your advantages. And I think somebody like TJ Sanders out of South Carolina is going to give them a lot, especially behind Ed Oliver. Like, I feel like learning in that spot behind those guys, I think he's going to be a good fit for this defense. How you like it?
I'll say I agree. He might have went a little earlier than we had him graded. He was an honorable mention, but at the same time, this class that we talk about for the edge and the interior guys was so deep that really you kind of couldn't miss, unless somebody becomes just a major bust. I mean, he's got good size, 6'4". He's a little undersized, being under 300 pounds, but it works out in his repertoire that he likes to use. He's more speed. He's still obviously strong interior wise, but he does a good job of shooting his hands real quick and being able to break through gaps. And he still is able to hold his own on double teams. So I like the pick. Just maybe there's some other interior guys they could have taken beforehand.
Yeah, that's a good shout too. Something to always consider. I just thought it was interesting because I feel like at that tail end of round 1 into round 2, there was like a real D-tackle run, right? So you kind of got to find yourself in that spot if you need it, which makes sense why they went up. We move on to the 3rd round pick. Now, if I'm being honest here, listen, I'm a little more hype about this pick than the last pick, right? Shout out Landon Jackson. He was one of your honorable mentions, and this is a guy that honestly I fell in love with when preparing for the show, like this show specifically. I'm like, man, to play in this SEC, right, and to be able to produce the way he has, I'm a big fan of his game, and I just think he a huge guy, right, 6'6", 264. And like I said, to have these guys that you could sort of sprinkle in, this team's D line is going to be so high motor because, first of all, they're drafting guys that fit that build. But second of all, you've got so many pieces that you could keep them fresh and you could keep changing them around, right? And I like his versatility on this line too. I'm excited about this pick, and I think at number 72, you couldn't have gotten a better pick than Landon Jackson. Am I overreacting? Am I too hyped up now, Cole?
No, I don't think you're overreacting. I'm more excited about this pick than maybe TJ Sanders. But the one thing I do got to remind myself about TJ Sanders is the Bills need pass rushers. So it doesn't matter if it's interior or on the edge. They want pass rushers because that's kind of been their downfall when it comes to those playoff games towards the end, is they're not getting enough pressure when that clutch time matters, right? So getting those guys right now is huge. This guy was fantastic to watch. Arkansas didn't have a lot of things put together, but they had a lot of good players that are going to play in the league, as Landon Jackson will be now. That they're just going to, wreak havoc in the NFL and probably end up proving themselves more than what they were able to in college. I like this pick a lot.
Yes, sir. And we move on to their fourth rounder at 109. They go Dion Walker, another Kentucky guy to bring onto the squad. That's three now that played together. I'm excited for this pick because once again, like you're in this spot. You're like, first of all, let's just be real. Having 4 picks within the first 109 is a really good spot to be in. Like, not there weren't a lot of teams that had that, even though the Bills didn't have an early first rounder, right? You're staying in that pool of talent, which is a good place to be. I like that he's the third straight D lineman they go. And his size is insane too, right? 6'7", 331. Like, this is somebody that may not necessarily produce out the gate because I think he needs a little bit more polish than the rest of the guys they drafted, but such a big body that honestly, you don't even need to be right sometimes out there. If you're that big and you can fill certain gaps, hold the door, man, hold door. He might be one of those guys for him. So I like the Dion Walker pick. How you feel about it?
I would say I like the pick as well, and it kind of makes more sense now with the TJ Sanders, right? You get a smaller, faster interior guy, and then you get the big guy that just eats every double team that exists in mankind, right? He's able to split it. I've watching film, I can't remember, I want to say it was the Georgia game, where he just took, and I mean, we know Georgia has great offensive line as well, and they had a double team, and consistently he's just able to stonewall both and get both his hands up and extend both of them out through a double team. Like, ridiculous with what he can do. And for this to be an early 4th round pick is kind of a steal. And they just keep racking the defense because this is what they need the most. There's really only one position of need on offense, in my opinion. But at this point, it's really, really good that they're putting like every kind of like archetype together that they need on that defensive line.
Mm-hmm. And they already got their star in Joey Bosa too. So I'm excited to see how this room all plays out because even last year, right, they were doing some funky things to try to fill that room. I remember the MMA side of things. I got excited because they signed one Gable Steveson, Olympic gold medalist for the U.S. in wrestling. He was a fucking pass rusher for him last year. Didn't really play, didn't make the field, but you see they're trying everything they could. This year they shorted up though, like they figured it out in my opinion. So this is going to be a scary defense, and it only makes sense considering who they got to play on the AFC side of things that you bolster that line for sure. But we move on to their 5th pick at number 170, Jordan Hancock out of Ohio State. And now this one screams pedigree to me. Like I like this pick because this is going to be a guy that you don't have to worry about as a rookie. And now that's saying a lot, right? I don't think he's going to be a 4-down producer in that way, but I'm saying to get somebody from a program like this, you know what you're getting. And I also like that he played a little bit at the nickel and safety in college as well. Gives them a little bit of versatility to move them around on the backside of that defense. Obviously, you don't want to talk about injuries with this team because they've dealt with a lot of very interesting circumstances in the past. Thankfully, last year didn't feel like that was that much of a hamper for them. I like his versatility and especially a pick 170. This is another late steal, in my opinion, because although he wasn't the standout guy of this program, I think being a part of a program like this, he's going to be a player at the NFL. What about you?
I would say I 100% agree. You were already alluding to it. I have a feeling they're going to convert him in a full-time safety is what it looks like they're going to do. He's very versatile, which is great that he's played outside corner in the slot and at safety, but it feels like the safety is like the last need that they need per se out of their top five. But getting a corner that is super versatile and he's got good size too. They'll probably put some more weight on him and just put him back in the box. Or at least he played. That's what I forgot to say. He played in the box too, not necessarily a linebacker, but kind of more of that Deion Buchanan, Isaiah Simmons type vibe that he gives off. He's just put me wherever you want, coach. I'll go play. And then because of this, he's also a great special teams player too. So maybe he doesn't see the field, but as they convert him into that safety role, he'll be able to still get good snaps for them in his rookie season. So I like the pick as well.
Yeah, here is where things continue to get interesting for the Bills. We got Jackson Halls at 5'169. They finally go offense here. And wait, I got to double check that. I don't think that's right, but it's okay.
It is Jackson Halls. You got it.
No, the number, the pick, 169. Yep, I wrote 170. Yeah, that's interesting. I should have been flipped. Sorry about that. The order is wrong on the graphic, but we're fine. We trudged through this. This is somebody that, if I'm being real, we didn't really give much love because I don't think he fits the mold of what's exciting to talk about as a tight end prospect. But I think, especially with the room that they already have, this is somebody that's going to be that sixth man for them on offense to go out there and block. And we saw them go out there and do that a lot. I was honestly very shocked that they were one of the teams that voted against the tush push, despite how much they fucking use it. So especially with the pick like this, it's just very ironic. But how do you like the pick?
Don't be surprised if he catches you in the pass game a little better than you realize. He's definitely the sixth lineman. They'll end up probably put more weight on him if they want to truly put him in that role, but he's already so strong at 6'5", 253. And then if you watched Georgia Tech last season and you saw that the running game that they had, I'm name slipping my mind as bad. That's how you know I'm kind of out of it a little bit. But with Georgia Tech's quarterback who will be returning and then the running back that they had, both of them were so good. And you just see that he's able to just pick up linebackers like it's nothing, handle edge defenders like it's nothing. It was very impressive with how good of a blocker he was. Normally, you don't have a blocking tight end really get drafted until the 5th and 7th round. And a lot of those guys are like number 1, number 2 kind of guys on your board as that kind of tight end. And he would have been one of them along with one other guy that we'll get to when we get to the NFC. But he's fantastic. And then, like I said, he'll sneak out in the flat and he can run in the seams a lot better than you realize. It's just once we catch you napping, that's when we hit you for the big play. And that's kind of the player that he is.
I love that. Real quick before we move on, I just have a question for you because this is a tight end room that I really don't know how to feel about. Obviously, they invested heavily in picking Dalton Kincaid, but I think as a rookie had his struggles. But then even now, I just feel like he has struggled to kind of find a role. What do you see for this? Is it going to be tight end by committee for the Bills?
I think it's by committee. I think it's just going to be more plug and play, rotate kind of situation, kind of on the defensive side, the way they've kind of turned that safety because of the injury bug that's plagued them, where they kind of just want to go by committee and then just want to figure out, we're going to throw you at the wall and see who sticks the most. And whoever sticks the most is going to be the one that's probably going to get the nod and then just continue to develop everybody else.
I love it, man. We move on to their next pick, and in the 6th round at 177, they went Dorian Strong, another cornerback added, this time out of Virginia Tech. Once again, you like to see the COVID influence. We got 5 solid seasons as a productive player. I like the way he looks, also specifically in press coverage. Were you impressed by Dorian Strong?
I am. This is another corner that can go play safety for them. So you kind of can see the vision that they're doing, because if I look at the strong suit for Jordan Hancock and for Dorian Strong, it's their eyes and their ability to read the quarterback. And since the Bills are so man heavy, the corner is going to be in man. So you're not getting your eyes on the quarterback. Who's got their eyes on the quarterback? The safeties. So, of course, if that's going to be their strong suit, I can see that's where they're trying to lead everything. And all three of these corners that they got are really good tacklers. So it's a good shout that they had a strong vision and they stayed consistent with it the entire draft.
Yes, sir. We move on to their 206 pick in round number 6, Chase Lunt, the tackle out of UConn. There we go. I almost forgot. I think this guy is awesome as a right tackle, especially this late to get him. I think he had something crazy like a 0.5 pressure rate at right tackle, which amazing for the spot. And this guy's huge too, 6'7", 330. Like, I think you're getting an athlete that's ready to perform. And at this late, you love to see it. So I like this pick a lot.
I would say the one thing, even though he's really big, and I would say this is, not trying to downgrade the guy, but he is a 6th-round pick, right? He does have shorter arms, but being at his size, it still is like a 6'4" kind of frame. And then when he does punch, he's not very violent. So he's definitely not a run blocking kind of guy, especially at his size, but he is quick at getting into his pass set. And that's why it shows with his pass rate, win percentage, that he doesn't really give up a lot of pressures or sacks.
I love that. And yeah, you're right. You gotta temper your expectations, but I still like the pick. We move on to their final pick, 7th round, 240, Caden Prather. And if I'm being honest, Cole, this is somebody who was nowhere near my radar. Somebody I really had to look into and prepare for. I think his best shot, probably, if I'm being honest, is to find a role in special teams. He is a bigger guy, though, so I'm interested to see whether or not he can become a producer for them on actual snaps. But I like his size at the position. Not really the biggest. When it comes to, exactly, not the biggest, and when it comes to contact balance, I didn't really honestly like what I saw. But I think when it comes to speed, he's going to give you what you need out of a 6'3" guy. Do you
I was
like
going to say, yeah, his size and his speed is very impressive. That he averaged like 16 yards a catch in 2023. If I remember, he either didn't play or he had an injury in 2024, and that's what kind of caused everything for him at Maryland. And the main thing is that he doesn't drop in, like, if it's in his vicinity, he doesn't drop the ball much, which is a very good thing to have as a late round pick. So they're probably just going to plug and play him red zone wise, I would assume. I don't know because of his height, special teams wise. I mean, Cordell Patterson was 6'2" and used to do that back in his like big prime. So, I mean, there's a chance that he could do that. But other than that, he's going to be a plug and play kind of guy, certain packages and 50-50 balls, right? So, I mean, it's not bad. It greens out the spot of need that I said that they need on offense. Would be receiver, but they didn't go like an elite receiver. But if you heard the Bills, I think it was their general manager or somebody cut in on their radio show, like post after the draft, and they were just getting on them for not getting a receiver. And then he just like went off and just cussed them out and like went crazy. And he said, look, you guys were mad about this, mad about that. We didn't have Stephon Diggs, and we ended up having better receiver numbers. So explain yourself. Don't complain if the results are better than what it used to be when we had those kind of guys.
Yep, and I think a big part of that too was James Cook being able to be a big producer out of that
For sure.
backfield too, right? So excited to see where that pass committee grows as well, because I think Keon Coleman has a lot of room to grow in his second year as that alpha for this team. So it's only time to turn in the grades. God damn it, the semester's over. I really like this draft, man, top to bottom. I think given what they had to work with, a very clear vision, obviously pedigree wise. Once we got past the 4th round, I like that. Honestly, all hits. If you ask me, like, I'm a fan of all these picks, and it makes sense why they went the way they went. As far as top talent in our draft that we talked about and we discussed, I feel like that's the only place that we're really, really kind of lacking here, right? Having those big names. But I really think these guys are going to all be solid producers. I may be a little high on it here, but fuck it, I'm doing it. Give me a B+ for the Bills. How you feeling?
I would say I'm agreeing 1000% with you. I almost gave them an A-, but I had to remind myself that to get the A-, you kind of have to fill out green in every spot. I know they got 2 corners to get that safety spot that kind of would be green. But I would say it's like you said, not like big name bonus, but it's filling in the areas that they want the most. I'm going to B++ it is what I'm going to do. So That's what I'm gonna go with. I don't normally do double pluses, but in this case, I don't think I can give them the nod to the A minus. And then also a testament to the character of their first round pick. Did you notice Maxwell Hairston shaking everybody's hand at the front of the green room at every pick, giving everyone hugs, and then he finally gets his name called?
I love that. Great shout. I didn't notice that because I never watched the actual draft broadcast. So I love you adding that in there for me because I love seeing things like that, man. At the end of the day, it makes sense, right? Why it's easy to look at your fellow NFL player like comp, but they're all in it together. And the fact that they made it and they get to cross that stage is what matters. So that's awesome. That's really cool to hear. Bills, you damn did it. One of the best, right? As far as both of our grades, one of the best. We shall see. We're tough graders, though, right? It's hard to get an A
For
out of
sure.
us. So make sure you're showing up.
I don't think you've given an A yet. I've given
Yep.
one. I've only gave one. It was to Tennessee.
Yep. Let's see if we get one today. We move on to the Miami Dolphins draft. Our first rounder, a good pick for both of us, right? Your third, my fourth ranked D lineman in Kenneth Grant. How do you like the pick at the spot?
I have no problem with it at all. I know that we had him graded high, right? He was my number 3 and your number 4 interior defensive line. But at the same time, I think when we got our mock going, I don't know if he even got picked in the first round for us. So this was our biggest slip up in the case of figuring things out, right? But they definitely needed this. They needed that huge interior guy that's just going to stop everything in his path, right? His teammate that's now a Brown, right? He's a different type of player, but he just wants to cause chaos in the run game, and he's not letting anything get through him. And he's actually a lot quicker than you realize. So it's just solid, and I think he's going to be a staple, kind of like Christian Wilkins, right? Whenever he first came out from Clemson and then went to Miami.
Such a great point. I really like the pick because of the free agency market. And I know that's a crazy thing to say, right? But you're not really getting a top guy at this position for this season, at least, right? So you might as well fill this slot and then address those other needs elsewhere. So it's still time for them to do that. We'll see. But I think that also boosts the grade of this pick because this D tackle position, if I'm being honest, it's a hard one to fill. And I like that they already came out to as an organization and say, hey, we don't really see him as a run stopper. You know, we want this guy to be out there pushing the pocket, which I think is going to be good for him and his future prospects as far as potentially earning some money in the league. So shout out to Kenneth Grant. When you get picked this high, man, you're going to get a lot of opportunity to produce. I think that's the part that surprised me the most, though. I think there were other names here, especially because when we consider who we had them picking, right? If I'm not mistaken, this was my pick.
Yes.
I ended up going Jahdae Barron here.
Yep.
And in the actual draft, funny enough, the tackles went higher, and then a lot of these cornerbacks went big time slides. So I'd still think that position is one that just needed to be addressed by this team, which is shocking. We'll get to that when we get to that. But I still think, once again, bang for your buck. You got a guy that you probably couldn't really fill this position elsewhere. So makes a lot of sense if you ask me. We move on to their next pick in the second round, a guy that we both were high on as an audible mention. But I don't know, at 237, it feels a little high to me, but they went. Jonah, you ready for this one? Because I'm not, Cole. Savanaya, the guard out of Arizona. This guy is not a perfect prospect by any means, but this guy's upside at guard for this team is exceptionally high. I think, once again, let's just call it how it is. That's Samoan DNA, right? We got some problems, ladies and gentlemen. This is a thick dude that's going to go out there and really wreak havoc on that side of the ball. I think he's really a tough guard too, which I think is something that gets oversold in a lot of ways. I think he's somebody that you push his head into the dirt twice, he's gonna come up trying to stab you the third time. Like I love his attitude in that way. So big fan of the player. And I guess you can't really call it a reach, right? If I'm this pumped, but I just thought he would have went a little bit later. Am I crazy?
I'm not sure, just because, when we did our rankings, right, the only reason he got honorable mention is because we comboed the tackles with the interior guys. I think for sure he would have been in our top 5 if we were talking just interior. But I mean, he had the second fastest 10-yard split, and that's the biggest thing that they look at in the combine for offensive linemen for their quick initial speed. Um, and then he only played 4 games in 2023, I want to say, at guard, but he had a better pass protection at guard than he did at tackle. So it feels like that he's more comfortable there. It's just that when he was at Arizona, they needed him to play tackle just because he was the best guy on their offensive line. Um, if he ends up sliding out, if injuries happen for the Dolphins, he can do that. But he's definitely like just going to be a staple of being put right there in the middle, right next to the center, in between the tackle, and just do the dang thing in the run game and the pass game. So I like the pick a lot. And also what Teron Armstead retired, right? Even though he all those years with the Saints, and then he went to the Dolphins in his career. So that's kind of that spot that he's taking over.
Great point. Yeah, I think he's definitely going to have a lot of opportunity to play. What he makes of it is what matters. Now, honestly, when I when I was going over this draft, man, I'm like, considering where they're at and all the needs that they had a rough draft, right? Like, didn't have a lot of capital, and now they're just at this late stage, right, trying to scramble to fill these needs. I hate to start it off that way because it sounds like I'm shitting on Jordan Phillips, but they get at 143 the tackle out of Maryland. I think once again, good to have another guy, right, to rotate in and make those offensive linemen miserable. I think he is somebody that is very raw, right? At 20 years old, he hasn't really shown an ability, if you ask me, to consistently rush the pass. This is something I would imagine that they are hoping to develop him into, right? And at 20 years old, you got a lot of room to do that. He's a very big guy, too, 6'3", 300 pounds. I think they got a good piece of clay to mold. But do I trust Miami to mold them is the question. I don't think you could have done worse, really, though, at this spot. So how you feel about the pick?
I will say we do have to remind ourselves, right, that they had the first 2 picks and they were the first 2 rounds, but then they sat with nothing in the third and nothing in the fourth, and then they basically we're about to go through 3 picks in a row for the 5th round. But this guy was a wrestler and competed as a weightlifter in high school, right? But even before he played ball. So, like you said, he's raw, but has a lot of high upside. So I understand why they took a chance on him. His bull rush capability is probably the greatest thing that he's done so far because he hasn't learned any super crazy skills. His arsenal of moves is not there yet as a interior guy, but he's so strong that he's able to just bull rush, and he's so flexible and low center of gravity as well that he's able to get under blocks completely and still push the pocket. So that's why I think that they're going to mold him. I don't think it's going to take much to mold him into what they need.
Great shout. And if I'm not mistaken, both of the rounds that they missed out was because of a trade with Houston.
Yes.
So all of those picks went over to them. Yeah, you give them grace, but it's also you put yourself in that position, right? And I think at a 13 ranked player, you would like to have a little bit better of a draft capital as we move on. But we go to their 150th pick with round number 5. They go Jason Marshall out of Florida, the cornerback. I think once again, this is a deep cornerback class, right? I think especially at this place, it's hard to find a quality player, but I actually really like Marshall. I think he's somebody that obviously very used to being in this climate, very used to playing out here, given that he's from Miami as well. Good size for the position. Might need to add a little bit of weight on him, but I think he's somebody who's also a willing tackler as well. I think once again, you got to develop these guys, but I think this is a good hometown fit for Jason Marshall.
I would say I agree. He's very good at press coverage, and the way that Miami runs their zone. They press like it's press man, but they end up disguising it in zone coverage. So it actually fits perfectly in what he wants. So he can line up press coverage, reroute receivers, mirror their release, shadow them underneath, and kind of figure out the route combinations. And at the same time, he gets to read the quarterback because it's still zone and break on the ball. Now, breaking on the ball, he's actually really good at his timing because his arms are shorter, even for him to be a 6-foot corner. So he has to be perfect at his breakup speed and breakup timing. Otherwise, he'll be there and then his arms wouldn't reach it. So, but he flashes it and he's able to jump routes. So I think he fits the scheme of what Miami likes to do. So it's good. And like you said, he just develop and build because they still needed a corner.
Yes, sir. And we move on to their next pick at 155. They go Dante Trader Jr., the safety out of Maryland. And I just got to say, man, if this guy translates to the NFL, this guy's going to be fucking fun to watch, right? Because goddamn, all we saw from him was going out there hunting the ball and goddamn taking it from folks. Like, I really like the way he plays because, once again, just playing with his hair on fire at the safety position, which isn't something you always see. Now, I think in some ways he lacks in the other departments, right? But I think he's somebody that has good instincts and for the most part is going to at least rally your defense, right? Like he may miss a play here and there, but what you get, the juice you get from having a guy like this on your team is worth the squeeze, if you ask me. I really
I was
like
to say
this pick.
spot on. I mean, the other thing too is he's just at the safety spot, but does the exact same thing. Reads receivers really well, breaks on the ball really well. So you see the vision that the Dolphins are trying to do. And like you say, he's just a headhunter for his size to go headhunt like that. You would have thought it was freaking Nick Warrior or something, right? Uh, I just I like his fire. I like his attitude and the clips that I saw for him. And he also led their team in solo tackles, which is not a great thing to know, for the team on the defense as a whole. But you know that there's not going to be any yards after catch if he's getting a hold of you. So it's a good security spot. And I think they needed a safety more than a corner, but they've got that now.
Yes, sir. So they got both, which is good, especially this late. We move on to the sixth rounder, 179. They go Ollie Gordon. And this is somebody who, once again, I agree with you, right? I think this is somebody who should have been on our radar a lot more, right? So, someone that should have been talked about. I think what really stood out to me when really digging into this pick is initially I look at it, right? And I'm like, the third year in a row that they're drafting a primetime running back. We haven't seen Jalen Wright hit just yet, but I think I liked him coming out of college as well. So I was interested when trying to figure it out, like where Ollie Gordon fits into this backfield. And I got really excited, man. I think, especially if he can return to some of the stuff we saw from 2023. I feel like if he would have came out, you could argue he would have been a much higher draft pick. Obviously, plagued with having to deal with a much weaker supporting cast in 2024, and that led to some of the sliding here, especially with the class. Like I feel like he's one of the guys that if this was any other year, he probably would have been looked at as like a fifth rounder. But just because how many guys were here this year at this position kind of changed things. I think he's someone that could produce. The only issue that I'm worried about, if I'm looking at it from a fantasy perspective, is obviously the traffic in front of him. But I think he's going to really have a role in short yardage situations. How
I
you like the pick,
agree.
Cole?
And like you said, I mean, if this running back class is deep, this is a guy that dominated 2023, couldn't really get the ball rolling in 2024, and not necessarily his fault. But at the same time, not because of his last name, but he kind of reminds me of Melvin Gordon coming out of college, Le'Veon Bell as well. The patience that he has on top of if it's short down in distance, he's just going to get the dang thing done, right? So if you're going to do 1st and 10, he's very patient, follows his blocks, hugs them. Even though he's a bigger back, you don't expect that to normally be a thing. He has no problem with doing that and following his guys. He still has the size and strength to develop as a pass blocker because at his size, that's really good in the NFL to have a back that's able to pass protect like that.
I love it. And we move on to their biggest name pick, if you ask me, of this draft. In the 7th round, we go 231. Quinn Ewers, the former 5-star QB, obviously didn't maybe necessarily live up to the 5-star recruit angle, but I think this is somebody that fits their system, right? Fits what they're trying to accomplish. The only thing I'm worried about, right, is I think Quinn Ewers is a year away from being a year away. Like, I think he needs to kind of develop in order to even be your backup. And I'm just worried in this specific situation with Tua's health constantly being in jeopardy that we could see a scenario where maybe Tua gets knocked out. And now, obviously, we got the Cougar Slayer himself, Zach Wilson, in there. But how long does that last, right? Before they start calling Quinn Ewers' name. I would love to see him develop into a backup, especially for this team, right? Because he kind of just fits in perfectly, going from Tua to Quinn in that way. But I just think this is somebody that needs some time to develop, which makes sense that he's a 7th rounder. How you like the
I
pick,
like
Cole?
the pick. I just hope and pray Tua stays healthy. Just personal bias. Obviously, everyone wants him to be healthy, but at the same time, uh, it's a business, right? You're gonna have to find that next guy. And honestly, if we're talking about all these quarterbacks that went from the 5th round and on, maybe other than Shador Slide, I would say, and then Will Howard, I would probably say Quinn Ewers is the best one that was still available. And for him to go all the way in the 7th round is kind of ridiculous a little bit, but it's also like grading all these quarterbacks to us. They really weren't first, 2nd round. Like a lot of them weren't at that grade or that talent, but it feels like any of them going after the 5th round. It's like almost all of them were a 5th round grade, 4th round grade, but you couldn't fit all of them in there. So it's really how they come and go. But he's known to be clutch at times. But he also had a lot of elite talent around him. The play calling, he had Sark. Sark's a genius. But he was never able to get it done. It was almost like he gave it's like Texas has kind of been like the Bills of college football the last few years. If you feel me on that.
I like that. That's a good shout. And I think once again, when you consider everything, it makes sense that they go him here. And it's just value at that spot. Like you said, like it, although we're not looking at him to be some sort of savior for them, he could certainly develop into someone for them. And to get that at 7, you love it. Now, to speak on that, we go 7th round, 253, Zeke Biggers. And trust me, this guy lives up to that name, right? 6'6", 320, like huge. And I also really like that he sort of kind of carved his role out in college, right? He blocked four kicks in college, and I think that's a lot of where he's going to see the field, at least for his rookie year. But I won't be surprised if this is someone who also gets some snaps, right? I think their defense is known to rotate guys. And I think he's also just, once again, the intangibles. If they could give this guy some finesse and some polish, I think at some point he can develop into being more of a run stopper for you. I'm not really excited about him necessarily pass rushing on a regular basis, but I think he's violent downhill. And at this pick, you like to see toolsy guys, right? Guys that are super athletic, but maybe a little raw potentials there. I
Yeah, I
like
do
this.
too. I just like you said, like a plug and play in certain scenarios, right? Short down and distance. I need you to stop this, block a kick, um, even block a punt, right? I mean, he's not like he's going to gain ground to help block anything for the returner, but he's going to be able to have a chance to block the actual punt. Um, yeah, if he's going to get developed into all that, the main thing that he's going to have to do is work on his pad level. But he's already just so big that he fixes his pad level, he's going to be a menace to society. And I think that's exactly what they were looking for and trying to get that spot done for them. So I like the pick, especially since this is closing out their draft.
Yes, sir. Now it's time to turn in our grades. Now, I had a hard time with this one, right? Because I found myself kind of being a little too harsh, but then also like, hey, I kind of got to boost him up here. So I'm just going to shoot my shot. I'm giving him a B minus here. I think it really surrounds from the idea of, once again, you could argue that even their best picks, maybe there was somebody else that they could have went, or maybe they could have maximized their draft capital at that spot in a different way. That maybe changes the way you look at the rest of the draft. But I think ultimately I really liked the players, right? When it comes down to how these guys are going to play for you and how they fit into your scheme, I think that's what ultimately forced them higher up on my grading and got me to the B minus. I think ultimately the Dolphins have a lot of holes, which is what makes this very hard for me to give them a bigger grade. But I think with considering what they were working with, not a bad
I was
draft
about
to
to
come
say
away
I
with.
agree with you as well. I'm gonna go with a B minus. I was debating, I had C plus plus or a B, but the Ollie Gordon Quinn Ewers, right? They're being undervalued at the spot that they were picked at, and the guys they took before fit the scheme of what they want on the defensive side of the ball. It's just they didn't get a tackle that they need, and they didn't get linebackers to develop as well. Because that's two positions I feel like they also needed to fulfill. But the picks they did have were able to at least keep them out of the C range. So I'm also giving them a B minus.
Yes, sir. It's only right. Good luck, because you got a lot to figure out, Mr. Mike McDonald. We move on to McDaniel. Sorry. We move on to an organization that I willingly hate. Right. Like, I'm gonna be very honest. Not really looking forward to good things for this team. But it's hard to have that sentiment when you look at this draft. We go out east to the New England Patriots, and with their first pick, they went Will Campbell. Obviously, we talked a bunch about Will Campbell, so this one is kind of beaten a little bit to death here. But I think he's just, once again, the kind of guy, you talk about character, the kind of guy that you want to have on your team. And I just loved his response. Obviously, the biggest clip that came out. I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna die for Drake May, which you love to hear from anybody, but of course from your lineman. So obviously, I think we've talked about this guy so much that it's kind of hard to even get into the talking points, because we already did it a couple times on this show. But I love this pick, and especially when you look at how their draft played out, it makes more and more sense.
Yeah,
So
I
I
don't need to
like it.
go into detail on this guy. I mean, you picked him spot on. Our beginning of our draft just seemed a little too comfortable, but we got every pick right because of it. And it was kind of like the obvious pick, and they were able to get that. Nobody shook things up and took him beforehand. So, I mean, there ain't nothing to complain about. This is exactly what they needed and wanted.
Yes, sir, exactly. And the vision is very clear. We move on to 238, Travion Henderson. Now, obviously, if you watch the Dynasty football show, you know that I'm high on this guy because I went out there and got him, right? I took me JJ McCarthy and Drake London, but I went out there and I got Travion Henderson and Christian McCaffrey to shore up my running back room, because I think this guy's going to be a baller for this team. I think the writing's on the wall, given the personnel that they got in there, right? With the return of Mike Vrabel and everything he brings. I think just historically, right, we've seen the running backs not only have a role out of the backfield, but also to get some of those passing downs and scenarios and get a lot of checkdowns in this offense. And I think, just given we're bringing back Josh, can you remind me of this offensive coordinator's name? Because the once forsaken, the once he's almost fell out the league,
I
right? What
thought
is
you were
his
saying
name? Can you
Josh
remind me?
McDaniels.
There we
Yeah.
go. There we go. Mr. Josh McDaniels. Obviously, whenever we think of him, we think of his tenure in Oakland. But it's okay. We get to talk about him as the offensive coordinator here. And I think, given the kind of player that Travion Henderson is coming out of college, you almost couldn't have asked for a better landing spot. I think, especially being able to get him here. Like, I honestly thought they might have had to come back up if they were going to get him, but just fell perfectly to them with their second round pick. I'm such a big fan of this guy just because I think, once again, 5'10, smaller, like pretty big for the position generally. Um, but he's just so capable, not and also just a well-rounded back. Pass protection, he's solid. Out of the backfield, he's solid. Like, you know what you're getting out of this guy. And considering he's the third running back off the board, you don't think you're getting this much. Nah, this is going to be a starter for them for years to come.
I 100% agree. And it's kind of like what we talked about in the previous episode. You were higher on him than I was, but that's, I'll eat my words. It's perfectly fine. We can't be perfect at everything, can't be right at everything, but you definitely spot on. I think you even had him. Honestly, you probably could have put him over Amarion Hampton, in your opinion, at the number 2. But him not being paired with Quinshon Judkins and getting his own backfield. I mean, there's going to be other guys in there, but this is his backfield to take and to own, and it's there for him. And I, like you said, the Vrabel coming in, even though McDaniels had, some situations for him in Oakland, but he'll be okay with Vrabel. I think this is perfect. And talking about him being in a dynasty, this is a guy, even if you're not doing a dynasty league, this is a steal for a running back slot in a regular, just 1 year league. And I really like the pick. They definitely needed the 2 biggest needs, in my opinion, outside of, I guess, receiver, right? But that's what they cover next. So Vrabel doesn't play any games, guys. That's the way you got to know. Vrabel does not play any games, and he's showing what he's about to do. And then his character, Travion Henderson, he's just a great person overall.
I love that shout too, because I think that's really important. And I love seeing the way he handled the situation with Quinshawn Judkins. Excited to see both of those guys succeed at the next level. But we move on to a very exciting third pick. With the 69th pick in the third round, they get Kyle Williams. Now, I don't know what the fuck it is. Can we talk about it, Cole? I don't know what it is. But this guy is being slept on by everybody. Like everybody is sleeping on this guy. And everybody's looking at this slot and saying, hey, maybe they reached for this guy. Maybe they could have got him later. I'm going to be honest here. This might be my hot take. I think he's going to be the wide receiver one out the gate with Stephon Diggs on the team. This guy is explosive, man. Anything past that 17, 15-yard mark, like I'm just such a big fan of what he's able to do. Just averaging, if I'm not, what was it? 17, yes, 17.1 yards per reception last season. Absolutely insane. And I think obviously you would have liked to see him maybe be a part of a bigger offense and be a part of a more successful team. And maybe that's why maybe people aren't giving him the respect he deserves. But I think just once again, when you have somebody that's like a proven downfield threat and big hands, only had like eight drops last season. Like
Total.
This is somebody who's gonna be a producer for you at this position in a big way. And listen, I hate to keep bringing up my dynasty draft here because I sound crazy, right? But to get this guy with my 4th overall pick, right, way later than anybody else, as a third rounder, like absolute no-brainer. But this is somebody who I think if you're doing a redraft league, don't even pick him up. Just leave him on the waiver wire until he goes off, because then you could get him and you'll be ahead of the curve, right? You'll know of it already. You might not have to spend a slot, and then maybe somebody gets injured early on and you already know where you're going with that pick. So I really like Kyle Williams in this offense, and I think if he hits for them, I think this can make this draft one that we're going to talk about a lot the next 5 years.
I'll keep mine short because his yards per catch was not short at all. 4.4 and was 40. And the other thing too, we talk about his explosiveness off the line is ridiculous, can make corners look just completely stupid, shakes defenders. And then the crazy thing is you're scared about him burning you over the top. His start to stop is ridiculous. So then now he's wide open, just sitting on a wide open spot in your zone. So like you said, he could take, I don't know about him getting wide receiver one immediately, but maybe by the end of the season it turns into that. But he might lead all the rookies in receiving touchdowns. Let's say that.
Ooh, that's a hot take, and I fucking love that for me, because especially in a best ball league, I don't even need to think about him. If he goes off, thank you, right? I wasn't even expecting this, so shout out. We move on to that 3rd round pick. They ultimately go. Third rounder. At 95, they go Jared Wilson, the center out of Georgia. Now, I'm really pumped about this pick because, first of all, you got your guy, but you moved back twice, right? So you got some capital here. You put yourself in a good position, and you still got a really solid center, if you ask me. I think ultimately he's probably not going to be the starter here. I think Bradbury's a really solid center, and I think that's a great person to learn from here. I'm interested to see if maybe they do kick him interior, right? And maybe kick him over a slot. And I would love to see him produce on that line, because I think he has the frame and also the finesse to produce at this level for guard.
No, you're not. And the other thing about this is like, okay, it looks weird because he's only a 1-year starter for Georgia. But because of that, you haven't seen everything out of him, right? These elite programs, it's a testament to any of those guys that sit there and wait their turn and just keep grinding. And then when they get their time, they show you what they're made of. So hey, he's going to be good. Like you said, he might get a immediate start at the guard spot for them. That would be something new for him to learn, especially because he's already continuing to develop. But if something ever happens to Bradbury, then they just, all right, we just plug in our next guy. No issues.
Yes, sir. You love it. Now we move on to where things get interesting in this draft. We got their 4th rounder, Craig Woodson out of Cal. This is somebody that played, listen to this one, a whopping 6 years at Cal, which is kind of crazy to wrap your brain around, right? being a captain in 2 of those years, I think speaks a lot to his pedigree and what it means to be a safety here. I think ultimately, though, once again, this is just a dart throw at this pick. I really like the other pieces that this back end of the defense has, right? I'm a big fan of Christian Gonzalez and what he brings to the table. So I'm excited to see if he can develop into being a player for them. Ultimately, though, it's weird because I personally like to see guys that carve themselves out a role and stick around, but I also think he did kind of do his best work playing guys that are significantly younger than him, right? So that is an interesting thing to consider. Ultimately, though, I think this is going to be a productive player for them. Not a starter probably, but someone that
Yeah,
rotates in for
he's
sure.
just a solid safety overall. I mean, being an early 4th round pick, good size, good speed, just does the basic stuff for a safety, covers a deep half, can line up in the slot if he has to, and fills gaps and wraps up pretty decently well. So it's a solid pick. At this point, I would say that's just filling the need that they have to add depth at that safety spot for them.
Yes, sir. It's only right we move on to their next pick. They got this pick from the Seattle Seahawks, and they ended up drafting Florida's own Joshua
Florida
Farmer.
State,
Now, this
Florida
is
State.
somebody who, hey, thank you so much, thank you. I got a little ahead of myself there. Um, I think once again, this was somebody who, before the draft, right, they were already looking into this guy. He visited to them, so it only makes sense that they trade up to get him. Didn't give up a lot, right? A 5th rounder and a 7th rounder, but still, right? This is somebody that they targeted and clearly wanted on their team, which makes you excited as a fan base because they got a role for him. They know what they want to use for him. And I think ultimately, though, the Patriots are getting a guy who's super motivated and obviously going to bring depth behind their newly signed Milton Williams and, of course, Christian Barmore. So I really do think this is another play that obviously you want Christian Barmore to come back safely. I think blood clots
Roll
are a very
Tide, Roll
serious
Tide.
issue. So yes, sir. So let's hope that everything is okay there. But this is a great insurance pick. All those
Yeah, I
things
agree,
considered.
and I think that he would develop really well with Christian Barmore. The main thing about him, I'm higher on him. He was on my honorable mention for the interior defensive line. He does both sides really well, clogs the run game up, and still is effective in closing the pocket for the quarterback in the interior side. So he's got to pick a side, left or right. He's able to at least shrink the pocket for the quarterback and make him either have to step up or choose a side. And I just think this is a really, really solid pick at 4th round. And I actually feel like he's going to get significant snaps for them in his rookie year.
Yes, sir. Speaking of significant snaps, man, I'm even more pumped about the next pick. We go for 146, Braden Swinson. Now, this is somebody that you could argue probably should have went earlier, right? I just think what jumps out the page to me is this guy wins his one-on-ones, right? Like he's gonna go no matter what, he's gonna collapse that pocket because one-on-one, you can't stop this guy. I think it speaks to his motor, but once again, it also speaks to his finesse. I think he could really keep up with a lot of different linemen. So I'm excited to see what this guy does for them, especially at this slot. I think this is a home run, and that takes a
I would
lot
say,
from
yeah,
this.
as an early 5th round pick, I feel like this is like almost a steal. It's like you're getting a 3rd round, 2nd round value in a guy, at least talent wise, right? He was a little inconsistent with some of his film, but the one thing that was consistent, if he's chasing out the backside and run game, elite. If he's rushing the passer, elite. The one thing that he has to work on is just not his strong suit. Because he's under 260 is just as you run the ball right at him. Like he likes to get off blocks, but he likes to get off of them and chase. That's what he's known for because he's got that high motor and elite speed. But this is a great pick as an early 5th round.
Yes, sir. And then it's only right after we get to go to a 6th rounder that we all are probably going to make fun of, right? We go Andres Borregales, the kicker out of Miami. Now, this is the first kicker off the board. Now, I thought this was significant, right? The third kicker that this team has drafted since letting go of Guskowski in 2019, the dynasty, right? We've fallen from grace here. I think ultimately, though, He's probably going to compete with John Parker Romo to be the starting kicker for this team. And it makes sense. I think he really performed big time for Miami, and we saw where it got them. So I think this is a great spot to ultimately get probably the consensus best kicker
I'm
in
about
the
to say,
draft.
I think that this is the future of New England when it comes to kicking duties. Kind of gives you, like you say, Gostkowski vibes in the sense of like he could just be elite. And the ironic thing is he missed his very first field goal of the season last year at 45-yarder. Not anything crazy in their season opener. And he did not miss again for the rest of the season. So, I mean, it just shows a testament. I think his long for last season was 56. So, you know that he can at least get those 50s for you. And it's overall his career, I think 70% of his attempts were made that were 50 or longer in his career. And then also he's a kickoff guy. So, you know, sometimes your punters end up doing that, but it's always good to have the kicker theirself, your actual place kicker, to do that and get the job done. So I think this is a great, you know, it's not ever a position of need, but whenever you've been struggling in that department for years, it never pops up for team needs ever because they, you know, special team lives don't matter. That's a lie. That's completely a lie. That's a third phase of the game completely. If you want to let the returners have all the fun, you better let the kickers and the punters get their job done too. So I like this pick a lot.
Yes, sir. I knew you would. We move on to their seventh rounder at 220, and they've got two more picks after this. They just couldn't fit on the graphic, god damn it. So once again, speaking to the amount of picks they had in this draft, they go Marcus Bryant, the tackle out of Missouri. Now, this is my hot take of the draft. I think if you are a competent offensive line coach at all, this guy ends up becoming a starter for you at some point. Like, this motherfucker is insane, right? As far as traits go, 6'7", sub 540, like just absolute athlete for the position. Obviously needs a lot of polish and finesse, but I think ultimately, if you're worth your job in the NFL, you have to develop this guy into
I
a
will
player.
say, I know that we're on the Vrabel era now, but this just screams Belichick vibes when it comes to a late offensive lineman that ends up becoming one of the best in the future. So, like you said, for you to be raw and to have the athleticism where you're not as polished and you're able to still make plays and be dominant just shows how his ceiling is going to be. And as long as he gets developed even more, that it's going to be ridiculous. Their offensive line might end up being very scary by the end of the season.
Yes, sir. I agree. Given the time to develop, and of course you need to develop, it could be very exciting. We move on to one of the most fun picks to think about here. We go Julian Ashby, the long snapper out of Vanderbilt, the first long snapper to be drafted since 2021. And I think this guy is just a special teams joy, right? To have on your team, someone that's really big, right? 6'1", 231. Could fuck around and maybe do some trick plays for you. But I think ultimately what made it exciting for me is I think the Patriots just got ahead of it, right? They're like, hey, there's other teams interested in this guy. I ain't even gonna give him the chance. Let's bring this guy in with one of our last
I would
picks.
say I agree as well. Like I said, special team lives matter. I would say you can't get the ball kicked right if you don't got the guy snapping it. And the thing is about these long snappers, if you notice, they're like linebacker size. So the other thing about it is on punt is he makes tackles, right? So you know that he's a sure enough tackler. It's not just a free body, and now you're playing 10 versus 11. So you're able to get a guy, and like I said, he played 5 years for at Foreman, one at Vanderbilt. And just was the best long snapper. If you're going to actually grade long snappers, and I just testament to what he did. I don't think he had any blocks kicked just because of the speed time. They test those in like special teams combines, the snap to hold speed. They'll like time that. That they take, like I said, special teams is its own dynamic, and they take that stuff so seriously. It just fits. They get two special teams guys in this draft that basically they're like, all right, these are guys that are going to be here for their whole career.
Yes, sir. Lock them up early. Now their final pick, they go Kobe Minor. Now this is
Mr.
somebody
Irrelevant.
who obviously, yes, Mr. Irrelevant, the final pick of the draft. This is somebody who I was shocked to find out they had a visit for, right? This is somebody who was on their radar, and he also admitted to saying he was the only team that they visited. So a match made in heaven in that way. I think this also, when I was looking into the tape for this guy, it took me a long time to find, first of all. But secondly, I think had he not been plagued with injuries, I think this might be a name we know about. Like, I think he actually has some pretty good ball skills, and what I liked about him is very quick decision making, right? Like once it's very clear how the play is breaking down, he can on the back end make some things up for you. So I really like Kobe Minor, despite where he fell due to his injury woes. Interested to see if he can
I
grow
must
as a
say,
player for
and
the
he's a
Cats.
veteran as well. He played 5 seasons in college, 3 Texas Tech, 1 Indiana, and then the last one at Memphis. So he's almost like a veteran at this point. And we notice this a lot with a lot of these guys with the way NIL has changed the way the college landscape is. But he has the experience and mentality. He'll be able to push to be able to make a name for himself on special teams, and then maybe just get himself slotted somewhere like the 4th corner spot, so that way he can just rotate in if something were to happen.
And just like that, it's time to turn in our grades. And we've been fucking pumped back to back. So god damn it, I'm doing it. It's time. I'm going to solid A, right? There's a lot that needed to be filled here. A lot. Don't get me wrong. And I can look crazy if Kyle Williams doesn't hit here, but I really am confident that he will. And it's probably the most slept on receiver in this draft. Super excited to see what becomes of this team. But I think ultimately, in this division entirely, right? Even though in the past ones we didn't like the players necessarily, it's very clear that they draft them with a vision. Each one of these teams. Now, when you draft with a vision and I like the guys you got me. So I got
As
an
your
A for
first
the
A.
Cats, even though I hate it.
First
Even though I
day.
hate it,
Now I
I got an
see
A.
where you were kind of giving a little hint to a little foreshadowing, as you would say, because you had an intro with how you can't stand that dynasty that existed there. I I'm high on everybody. It's just something about the way the Patriots have done things in their office through the past years in general, when Belichick and the dynasty happened with Brady. And then just Vrabel, with knowing his past research and the idiocy of letting him go. Just in my opinion, you just now let him go and reign into New England and bring back what used to be. That just depends on the development of like Drake May and other guys like that. But I think when it comes to regarding this draft and finding hidden gems everywhere, I would 1000% agree. The only thing for me is like the Craig Woodson pick's a little like odd to fill in that safety spot. They greened everything else out. If they would have found a safety that kind of wowed me a little more, I think I'd have given them an A as well, but I am giving them an A minus.
Hey, they reached that A threshold, so I like it, and it makes sense. I think I'm really high, more high than most, right? Which is fine. I'm interested to see. It's going to take a lot to turn around this team. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team this year, but if enough things hit, you could see a world, right? You could see a world. So
I think they get
interesting
6
times
wins
in New
though.
England. Yep. Yep. And who knows, right? That might be enough to get it done.
Yeah.
Who knows? No, I'm joking. Not in this division, guys. We got a lot of work to do. But I mean, excuse me, conference. This division kind of sucks. But we move on to the bottom of that because it's the New Jersey Jets, ladies and gentlemen. We get to talk about the Jersey Jets. And it's so
East
funny
Rutherford.
because obviously it's a joke. It's a joke. They're the New York Jets, but they're in Jersey. God damn it. I'm excited about talking about this team because it's not going to take as long
Got
as the
that
other
right.
drafts. We start with their first pick, Armand Membu, 107, fell to them perfectly. But you have some explaining to do, Cole. So I'm going to lay out.
All
Let's do
right.
this.
Just my explaining is I had them taking Kelvin Banks, and the reason was just because Kelvin Banks is a better run blocking tackle than Armand Membu. If we're going to talk about a better tackle overall, you had him ranked at number 2. I still had him ranked at 3 with Kelvin Banks at 2, but it was just because I thought he fit better I think he went to the Bears in our mock. So I think he really fits with any team, to be honest. But I think Kelvin Banks kind of fit the mold for them better. But they're kind of trying to change the way New York's been on the offensive side of the ball. So it does make sense that they would just take the best available at that point. So it's still a knockout. It doesn't matter if they would have taken Kelvin Banks or this, in my opinion. You probably would say differently, but he's going to be fantastic for them. Just freak athlete, and they had nothing much to say about him other than what we've already done in past episodes.
And I'm just proud of the Jets for doing the right thing, right? Like, so we there's been years where maybe they didn't, But surprisingly, I think when it comes to either side of the line, offense or defense, I think the Jets know what they're looking at, and I like the pick. Ultimately, though, I ain't mad at the pick either. Well, did we talk about Banks yet? I don't think so, right?
Talking about Kelvin Banks?
Where did he go? Yeah,
Oh,
where did
Kelvin
he
Banks? Oh,
go?
no. We haven't talked about him.
Yeah, exactly. Because he ended up going to they're the Saints. So we'll get there when we get there. But yeah, I like the player. We already talked about him a lot as well. Got a thumbnail, right? So we're excited for this guy. But I think ultimately, what excites me about this is the second pick. We go 242, Mason Taylor. Now, this is somebody that both you and I discussed in the draft, but you had him as your third tight end. I had him as my honorable mention because I was also excited about him, but you had him ranked super high. So how do you think he fits in with
I
Jersey?
think with the vision of what they're wanting to do on the offensive side of the ball, especially after making the Mimbu pick over Kelvin Banks, it makes more sense that they would want Mason Taylor to be the full package kind of guy, blocks decently well, is able to slip out. He doesn't have to put his hand in the dirt and be on the line. He can line up in the backfield, which is what I see them doing a lot with him. And like I said, just big hands, makes contested catches. So in a division where you have corners that like to make tackles and safeties that want to come headhunt, that you're going to have a tight end that's still going to be able to make the catch. And so it makes a lot of sense that they would take this guy. And he's also the first tight end to have 100 reception and 1,000 yards in LSU history. So a big testament to that as well.
I was super surprised by what he was able to accomplish in the production, but also just the hype leading in, right? Because I think the draft capital matched more how you felt about him than how I did. I think ultimately, though, when you consider how I felt, right? Like I think this pick for me doesn't hit as hard for maybe it hits for you, just because I'm like, hey, maybe you could have got this guy instead, or maybe you could have done this instead. But I think ultimately, obviously, with letting go of I hate when I do that. I segue into something and I just immediately forget their name. The
There you
Tyler
go. Yep.
Conklin, letting go of Tyler Conklin. I think they made the room for Mason Taylor, and I'm excited to see how he fits in with Justin Fields, who did a lot of great work with Pat Fryermuth in Pittsburgh before he was forced to sit down from what had to be a handshake deal, right? It had to be a, hey, Russ, we told you you're going to start, so it's time to test it out, because I think the Jets sneaky were a big winner this offseason just because of capitalizing on that situation, right? You get a starting quarterback on a budget, right? $20 million a year. And you also get somebody who is a winner, right? Went out there and won until he was benched. And then the team fell apart when he wasn't out there. So I think I'm really excited to see him play with Justin Fields and whether or not he can be unlocked in that offense. I like it. I think the fit is good. Just once again, I like personal preference. We could have figured some other things out. We move on to their third round pick. They go Azariah. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Thomas, the Florida State cornerback. Now, this is somebody who, in the process, right, when we were looking through all this, maybe we kind of left them out of the top five with just keeping them in our honorable mention, right? I think this is someone who, despite the draft capital, I think could have deserved to be in either of our top fives. I think he obviously just the size speaks to you, 6'2", 197. I like his eyes, and I love the way he keeps his eye on the quarterback, but then breaks on the balls. Like he does a lot of trickery out there in the position, and I think when you match the physical traits with that mind, that's when you start getting productive players. So I really like this, especially for the Jets and what they've proven.
I love the pick as well. Just their cornerback room is getting a little crowded. That's all I'm saying. So I feel like they're starting to figure something out. He's definitely an outside guy, so I'm not worried about my boy Michael. But he's definitely showed out in the Senior Bowl, right? His height makes it where he's able to just be long and strong to reroute receivers. And he's still fast enough to stay in phase. And then, like you're talking about reading the quarterback and knowing, like playing tricks, to be able to have the ability to play tricks on offensive side of the ball whenever you're playing corner is a lot of fun, right? You make it look like I'm stuck in man, and then you end up breaking off on an underneath route and it's a pick six all day, right? Or You act like you're playing zone, so it looks like off man, but you're able to stay in phase the entire time. So there's different ways to mix it up, and he does a good job of showing that. And his body control is very excellent. He really doesn't get tripped up on anything a receiver gives him through a route. I guess this is also because of DJ Reed, right? They lost him in free agency, so that would make more sense.
That's a great shout too, and I didn't even think about that. So, yeah, man, the landscape makes sense, the player makes sense, and of course the pedigree. It all adds up. We move on to their fourth pick at 110. They go Arian Smith. Now it was crazy. One of the reason why I ended up trading and getting the seventh pick because I had the sixth pick already. So I went Omarion Hampton, Travion Henderson back to back, and that was only available to me because the guy before me drafted Arian Smith. Can we talk about this? Can we talk about this, Cole? It doesn't make sense, but
it kind of does. I'll explain why.
Despite, yeah, no, I was going to say, despite that preface, I think ultimately his tape stood out to me, man. I think this guy's a producer. I think he's really explosive, right? Similar numbers to someone we just talked about in Kyle Williams, right? If I'm not mistaken, 17 yards per reception, also average around 11 yards per carry, right? I just think he is somebody who is set to produce right now and maybe probably not going to get those looks considering the backfield for the Jets, right? Probably not going to be used in that role. But I'm excited to see if he could carve out something on offense because I think ultimately this is the year that we try to spread things out a little bit more. I know Garrett Wilson is an uber prospect, and I still think he is more so than any other wide receiver that's been drafted in the last 5 years has had his value hampered by the quarterbacks he's been paired with. I'm interested to see if Justin Fields can be the savior for that because in our minds, maybe he isn't the guy, right, to be a pass first option. But I think if everything hits, Arian Smith could maybe even be their wide receiver 2.5, 3. Like I think he could be a producer for them big time and maybe even grow into a solid starter for this team.
Hot take here, and as much as he's a Georgia, I still got to say it. Arian Smith, if it wasn't for him being plagued with the drops that he is known for, is probably a top 5 receiver in this class. He has everything available to him. It's just the drops. Things were a little inconsistent. I think it had to do with the locker room dynamic with the quarterback that he had that is now in Miami and Carson Beck. But Arian Smith, little throwback, Justin Fields, I think saw Arian Smith. I don't know if they were on the same team at the time whenever he was, because I think Justin Fields is a little too old. But I think Arian Smith visited Georgia while Justin Fields was still there. So they do have a little bit of interaction with each other, and there's a chance that they already have a good enough chemistry that he'll probably be wide receiver 2 immediately.
I love that, man. I really do hope he can be that for them. I'm just a little scared that it's asking a lot of somebody in an offense that maybe even the wide receiver 1 isn't going to get a lot of targets. So I'm interested once again to see what our guy, Aaron Glenn, has up the sleeve over there in Jersey. But we move on to their next pick at 4, 130. Malachi Moore. And you know what? Cole's rubbing his hands together. So I know he's got some good stuff for us. Why don't you lead the dance?
This is my guy, Malachi Moore. Testament to him, right? The transition from Saban to DeBoer. Him along with Milroe were one of the guys that stayed, didn't transfer out, became a leader for that team. So he's got the experience. He's been plagued with injuries, so that's the biggest thing about him, for him falling this far in the 4th round. But he's got the speed. He's quick enough. He's very good, even though he's a safety, to shadow slot receivers, which you normally wouldn't see in the Jets. Back off, Malachi Moore. That's my boy Michael Carter's spot, but it's okay. They could just let him stay over the top. He's great at breaking on passes over time. He gets depth, reads the quarterbacks pretty well, and he's not scared of contact in the slightest. And then, like you said, he finished 3rd on the team with tackles with 70. So, and then with that Bama team that they had defensively, that actually is a really good testament. And the safety too that Alabama's about to have back is ridiculous too. So, I think this is a steal. 100% not biased in this explanation, I promise. But I think that him and Arian Smith both are like the biggest steals of the fourth round.
Yeah, great shout. And I couldn't agree with you more. I think once again, a little shocking because this defense is going to be scary if all these picks plan out. But I'm excited to see whether or not he can be a hit at that next level because the tape really stood out to me. I agree. He's really fluid out there, and I think he's going to wreak havoc on defense. We move on to their fifth rounder at 162. Lock in because this is a tough one. We got Francisco Mauigawa. I know that's not right, but it's okay.
There it is.
There we go, Mauigawa. I like his film too because this guy is just a producer, right? Led the team in tackles, gets tackles for loss. Probably, maybe you would like a little bit more athletically from the guy, but I think ultimately he makes up for it for his knack of knowing where to be to finish plays. And I think he can find himself working his way onto this roster. I think it's going to be hard with this defense specifically, but I think he can certainly carve a role. Dude, am I crazy?
I don't think you're crazy at all. And I mean, I agree about talking about he's not like the most. He's still a freak of nature. He's just not like these other guys that stand out because this is the NFL we're talking about, right? Everybody's a freak. So he had 3 interceptions in his college career at the linebacker spot too. So he's got good hands when it comes to his zone drops and also at least getting his hands up to break things up. But like you said, just everything on the defensive side is so crowded for them. But if this is what they're wanting, so that way when their main guys get rest, you don't miss a lick. I guess the Jets are banking on let's average 6 points a game giving up and let's win 7-6, honestly.
I like that. Let's pack these guys up and make them all exhausted by the end of the game. Their final pick at 186 goes Tyler Barron. And I'm going to be real. This is another guy that I wasn't pumped about, wasn't excited about. But then when I got into the tape, I'm like, man, this guy finishes plays, right? Like from all the way across the other side of the field, this guy will finish a play for you, which is something that you love to see. And I think he sneaky fast, right, for an edge rusher. So I think this is another guy that if all things work out and you could give him the right seasoning, could be a big time producer.
I will say, I mean, once he transferred from Tennessee to Miami, he tied in tackle for loss and sacks in that only season. So it just shows the testament of the performance that he could do. Because I mean, we know how Tennessee's defense looked last season and the guys that they have had off the board this draft. So it would make sense that it was just kind of crowded for them the years prior and that he was able to at least show enough to at least get drafted here in the 5th round. And I mean, that's the other thing too. We talk about they're done now and it's the 5th round. So a lot of these guys are higher up than what, a gadget guy or project of what you want. So I feel like these last 4 picks and being 4th and 5th round all had potential to be a 2nd, 3rd round if they were in a better scenario.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, I think they did hit on a lot of guys that they needed while also giving them room in free agency to maybe take a swing on some guys. I won't be surprised if maybe a vet like a Stephon Gilmore ends up there too, right? Make it a little more crowded for these young guys to develop. We shall see.
Oh, and back-to-back teammates then the last 2 picks, Miami guys.
Yeah, good shout on that too. Yeah, I noticed that as well. It's only right that we finish it off with our grades here. Now, this one was fun because I think they had a little bit of the inverse of the Miami problem, right? They didn't have maybe the full breadth that you like to see, but I would say all of these guys are promising young players that could develop into something for the Jets. They're going to need a lot of guys to develop, if we're being honest, right? We need a lot of these guys to be starters for us to figure this out. But I think ultimately given what they had to work with, I think they got really good picks at each of these spots. You know what? I'm a little trepidatious, right? Because I was like, I don't want to go too low on this team because I feel like I already did it with Miami. Let me give them a B-.
Well, I would say for me, it just seems like, obviously the offensive side of the ball is their biggest concern. And they didn't double dip in those positions, but they're very confident in Mimbu, which I agree. They're confident in Taylor, which I agree. And they're confident in Arian Smith being a steal, which I also agree. So because of that, all 3 of the positions on the offensive side of the ball they needed the most, they think those are the guys, so they needed to double dip. So they just pack loaded the defense for the rest of the draft and guys that are still solid picks. So I'm going to give them a B plus because they just decided to just continue to crowd the defense, let that be dominant. They showed signs that it wasn't as good last season, but I think it was more of a locker room mentality with the way things were going with the head coach. And so offensive side of the ball, they knocked it out of the park, in my opinion. And then defensive side of the ball, they just got pieces to just add to that depth. So I'm going to give them B plus.
I like that we both had a little bit of range on our last two here, right? Where I'm a little higher on New England, you're a little higher on this one. I think it's just scarier for me because maybe in New England they get a little more grace, right? I think here these guys need to hit. Like we need to hit big time, which makes it a little scarier for me, especially with how high you are on Arian Smith. I'm excited, but I'm going to leave it where it is. B minus to your B plus. Cole, I had a ball doing this. I think this was one of the more well-rounded episodes as far as the kind of teams we're dealing with, right? We got contenders. We got new teams that are trying to find their way around the hump. So a lot of variance here, and I think ultimately we did a bang-up job of covering it all. So why don't you, on the way out, just whatever you want to say to the people, get it off your chest. Remind them where they can find you.
You can find me Instagram, Twitter at _real_J Cole. And this is closing out the AFC for us. So you know where we're headed. We're headed to the conference that may not look like they're as elite, but for some reason, they always want to show that they're the better conference.
Yep. It's only a matter of time before we're out at the NFC, and I can't wait because you could argue a lot of the risers are on that side of the conference. So I'm excited to get into that. But thank you so much for all the love and support you guys have been showing us, man. It's been tangible. I think Cole has proven to be a goddamn star for OTS. Been loving all the interaction and love that we've been getting from all you guys. So thank you all, right? Without you, none of this is possible. So we're really thankful and our heart is full, but continue to do that. Continue to show your support. If you want to have any topics you want us to discuss about your favorite teams, leave a comment, right? Let us know so that we could give you guys the content that you want. But with all the pleasantries out of the way, thank you so much for locking in with us. And just remember, the next time you're sad, right? You're looking forward to how can I right this ship, right? How can I get this plane flying in the right direction? You start to think, you start to get a little confused, like, hey, if you wanted to get the Jets to fly in the right direction, having an Egyptian head coach might not have been the right way to do it. So let's do it, Aaron Glenn. Let's figure it out. The Jets should be flying high. We'll see you next time. Peace.